Hello, everyone, and welcome to September 4th, 2024's episode of Weekly Manga Recap. I don't know what voice I'm doing today, but apparently we're doing it. I'm Nick here with Quinn to talk about the week's manga.
That is what we do here on this podcast. We talk about this week's manga, we recap it. Every so often, we drop a couple good recipes for you, something just to keep your belly warm. And then every so often, unsolicited legal advice. We just provide it. Yes, please join that class action lawsuit. I think it's absolutely imperative to your time to do it. You should sue your senator.
I did actually get a notification on a class action lawsuit that I could have been a part of, and it was like, what would I have gotten at it? Like $20.
I mean, I've definitely pocketed that.
$20.
Yeah, I've definitely taken it. It's generally almost no work to sign up for it. The ones that suck, though, is the ones where I don't even think I got anything. Like, I think I did the Facebook one, and they were like, you should expect something in like 3 to 4 months, and that was a year ago. So I'm just assuming that never went through. Like, they were just like, nah, you don't get it. So it's why I still have my X account. Because one day there's going to be a class action lawsuit on Twitter, and I need to make sure my account's still there.
That's a good policy, dude.
It's like, look, I don't need to do anything else with the account. It's just going to sit there. It'll qualify me one day.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's not like the guy, who runs it does stupid things like, legally upset an entire country.
Nick, they're only the 6th largest amount of users on the platform. You won't even miss it.
Let's see, 7 users. Wow, 7 million users.
But Nick, what would we do without Tim Pool being shot to the top of everybody's algorithm? He's not in any trouble. He's an innocent boy, right, Nick? I haven't checked the news in the past, 3 hours.
I don't know anything about that particular case, but I always got weird, creepy vibes off that dude anyway, so I'm not surprised.
I believe there's something linking the Russian government pays him $400,000 a month to spread propaganda.
I'm surprised that what he does is that, deliberate.
$400,000 is a lot of money.
Oh, man. This is not a political podcast. We, however, do wear our politics pretty clearly on our sleeve. So I'm not really uncomfortable with talking about it, except for the fact that I don't know. I came into this completely unprepared to talk about any of it.
I wasn't planning to either. Nick, do you want to talk about Concordia instead?
What's that?
Oh, Nick, poor Nick. So this is I don't know. I don't know what tension.
One more bit of politics. Quinn, I don't keep up with current events. Do you know how I kept up with current events until about a year and a half ago? Twitter.
It all comes full circle. This is absolutely something you would have heard about. Concordia is not political. It's a video game that was like an Overwatch clone that I think some company working with Sony was putting out. It just came out. Was so dismally unpopular. It's been out for 2 weeks. They are sunsetting the game and giving refunds to anybody who purchased it.
Wow.
Oh, is it just Concord? Okay, sorry, Concord. Yeah.
That's still. It doesn't matter. I mean, it's great. That's how badly received it was. You couldn't even remember the name of it.
Yeah. I knew nothing about this game. I only know the controversy that it was announced, released, and then sunset almost immediately.
I think it also does to go to show that some of the games that these guys put out where they have all the heavy marketing, they just so heavily count on people playing, not only getting the game, but also playing it and getting all the packs and stuff like that. So they're like, if there is a clear, there's no income that's going to be perpetually coming in, then it's like, well, we just got to cut all this stuff right away.
Yeah.
And, then they can also like be like, oh, and we get, we didn't put out the Batgirl movie, so we get to have a tax break. So
yes, there's unfortunately all that stuff as well. I do not want to sit on the throne and say I know the entire story of Concord, but I'll simply say it's very, very, it's very, very sad that presumably a lot of people are going to lose their jobs over this, and very, very much like a weird testament to just like how, like, you ever see like videos of someone driving a forklift in like a warehouse and they fuck it all up in like a whole like stack of crate? Like, it's one of those things, like those colossal fuck ups that like gives me nightmares to think about if I was responsible for. Like, if I was like the game director for this, I'd be like, I think the mob might kill me. Like, I don't think we had any connections to it, but this fuck up was big. Someone's gonna get me for it.
You're just like some Don somewhere who's like, listen, I buy a AAA game every single month. And this motherfucker.
My son loves live service games. He's always playing them. He says, Papa, when is a new hero-based, class-based shooter coming out? And I said, Concord, son. Concord. Shut your mouth. It's gone. What am I to do now?
You made me a liar to my boy.
My sweet baby boy. Stereotypical junior. Yeah, Paul. What happened to my game?
I love him. He's a giant stereotype, just like his papa.
Hey, Dad. We got any ragu in the house? Ragu!
I also have no idea how old he is.
Hey, Pops! When's All in the Family starting? I'm getting antsy!
You have to take us into Undead Unluck, so good luck with that.
Well, much like Andy shooting himself through Ruin like a blood bullet, that's something that also happened in All in the Family in one episode. It's a later season, most people don't remember it. Let's talk about Undead Unluck. Oh wait, I have to do the line. We have all these series to talk about, so let's get to the recap portion of Weekly Manga Recap. I forget I have to do that because there's no My Hero before this.
You lead it now. That's right.
This is terrifying. This is too much power for me, Nick.
We're going to be doing some adjusting as Weekly Shonen Jump does its adjusting, so I'm sure we'll figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. But we open with a little bit of a flashback to what Fuka was exactly kind of thinking as Andy rematerialized in front of her, and she's thinking, I'm sure Andy thinks that this is the moment where it all started, because the detail that was brought up to us is that not only did they interact in a very similar way to Andy and Fuko early on, the location that they're actually at is the bridge where Fuko was trying to jump off when Andy ran into her in the first chapter. So she's like, Andy probably thinks that this is where it all started, but that's not true. The truth is, we don't get to find out that part. We cut back to the present where Andy is firing off one of his finger bullets with Unluck charged into it, and it goes straight into Unruin. And it took out the blood ball. Ruin notes that this is going to be Unluck designed to negate him, basically, and he loses track. He stops paying attention to Fuko and Andy for a second, and when he looks, they're all gone, and suddenly there's like 8 Andys around him, and Ruin is very calm about this. He's very much like, oh, cool, you've created a bunch of skin clones, basically, that you're like controlling at once. You're much further along in this.
Wow, I didn't know that I would see Undead's dick today, let alone 8 of them.
Yeah. They're all somehow more mesmerizing than the last. Focus, Ruin, focus. Shadow, is the one I think that just notes like, hey, they're just skin clones, basically. Look for the only one that has mass, basically. So Ruin, takes a moment and is like, boom, it's this one. Shoots a blade, pierces Andy right through the skull, and seems as though he gets him, but one of the Andys flies towards Ruin from behind, and the idea is like, the rest of them are just skin things. They can't attack. This one rips the skin open, Fuko's inside, slaps it against Ruin, hits him with undead skin, and the unluck caused by that attack is enough for Andy to make sure that his dead road attack is like a guaranteed hit. That's essentially the unluck consequence of that skin move. And Unruin, very, very impressed by this to a certain extent. Like, you're very good. But this isn't enough to kill me. And this won't kill God either. And he's speaking directly to Andy at this point. He's like, you have the same ability as me. So why are you on their side? I'm sure you understand. Like, just accept it, right? And Andy at this point, he fixes his hair and he's just like, I live by my own rule. And no matter what happens, that rule's a constant. Even if it's against God, it's never going to fade. And at that moment, Rune gets hit by a car. Yeah, and he's flying through the air. His body starts to like rip apart. And Fuko notes like, oh no, this is really, really bad. If we don't have a plan, then like he's gonna like split into multiple. And Andy's like, oh, don't worry, like it's fine basically. So Ruin's thinking like, okay, my body's been split up. The unluck must be concentrated on some part of my body. I'll just regenerate to a different part. But all of his other body parts suddenly get sealed by these capsules. And he's like, oh, a third party. And the driver of the car that hits Ruin comes out. And it's Nico, who just says, hey, it's all thanks to you that I'm as happy as can be, Andy. And Andy, he's all excited to see him. It's a reunion of these two characters. And Andy's like, hey, we are just getting started here. And he notes that all the ties that Fuko has worked on over the past 200 years will come to help us. And that's the moment that Unavoidable shows up, gets a big punch in on Unruin. There is a very, very small moment of Andy saying like, oh, well, that takes me back. Because for him, he hasn't seen Void since the previous time loop when he was killed. So for him, this is like...
at this bridge, basically.
Yeah, like he's like, shit, we're going way back here now. And Shen's there as well. I do like this is like a full circle. Those are the two negators that came to get Fuko and Andy the first time. So very, very cool there. Shen and Mui are sending Ruin up into the sky using the bow staff. I do love that Andy also asks, like, oh, Shen and Mui are here. Are they already a thing? What's going on with them?
I say a guy and a girl together, and I just, immediately assume, like, they must have a thing for each other.
I do love, I've come to appreciate that there is just a shipper side of Andy that's just like, so are these two, like, are they a thing? Come on, they gotta be a thing now, right? And Fuko just...
Andy, like, two guys or two girls could be a thing. What?
No, I don't think there's a UMA. Right. I don't think there's a UMA for that. So.
Oh yeah, or like more than two people could be a thing. I don't think so. I was like, Rip's got two wives in this loop.
That's where he has to go. That's where someone has to be like, Rip's polyamorous. Oh, it's a shame Rip didn't get to survive this loop. No, he's fine. No, it's a shame. Like you see him like trying to like break his neck. Like it's a real shame Rip didn't survive. Damn you, Unruin! So Fuko says, thank you for always living and never giving up, Andy. It started with you. And as she's doing this, Andy is taking a bite of his finger and he has like a chunk of it. And she's like, thank you for always living and never giving up. Because it started with you. It wasn't, us meeting. If you were never born, then and Andy interrupts her as he's starting to like disappear a little bit, doing this effect that I guess is meant to, I don't remember, this might have been a thing from before, but doing his effect to say he's basically going to kind of regenerate from another part of his body. And he says, don't worry about it. It was just dumb luck. And you're the one who turned that luck into fate.
Aww. Very,
very cute. At this point, Ruin has been launched all the way into basically space, like they are in the stratosphere. And Andy starts to materialize with him, basically on this staff that has grown larger and larger to the point it's a platform. And he grows out of him thanks to the bullet that was fired at the very start of this chapter. And he says, thanks to you, Fuko, I have a rule within me now. And he lampshades very briefly that they're in space, so they can't hear each other. But Andy shouts out, I told you, I've got one rule only. I'm guessing that you found that in God. But I got mine from her. And that's why I can live. That's why I can take on any challenge. Now, come on. You follow it, too. We get a montage of these various different moments between Andy and Fuko throughout the series. And he
Mm-hmm.
shouts out in this 2-page spread, "Let's enjoy what life has to offer."
Yeah, it feels like a very big celebrating Undead Unluck kind
Yeah.
of moment just in general with this collage of moments, but it seems appropriate for hey, Andy is back. He's back as a full player in the series again.
It's weird. I'd like gone so long where Fuko was like a deuteragamist and then eventually just the pure protagonist for a while. It's weird for Andy to feel back. Like it's cool, but like yeah, there's like a part of me it's like, oh, this is really sweet.
Yeah, it's nice that we just get to have a big moment like this. There is still like a lot of stuff now that's going on in the background that I'm worried about. What's going to happen with, like Chikara's eyes and everything else, all the fallout of the attack that Unruin had on Fuko's group. But in the moment, because there is all this excitement over Andy's appearance, and he's doing all these cool things, and he and Fuko are having this awesome tag team tactics together where she's imbuing him with unluck so that even when it seems like Unruin is way away from them, it's like, no, you dumb idiot, you've still got his finger in your mouth.
Yeah.
You gotta pay attention to what people put in your mouth, Ruin.
Oh, is that a thing? Am I supposed to be keeping track of when people put fingers in my mouth?
Generally, if you don't need to do it,
well,
willingly.
Let's not say things you don't know my life. So
I guess I don't. I don't know what Ruin gets up to in his free time. I barely know what his name is.
Yeah, I think it is Ruin, and he's on Ruin. I can't remember though. I just took a shot at it as I read the chapter.
But I really do like that. Yeah, we get all these references to the start of the series, and I want to see where this goes now.
Yeah.
And if Ruin is going to end up being someone that they can actually save in some way, because it seems like Andy is making motions towards that.
Yeah, we shall see. I'll be very curious. But this is fun. It's been awesome having Andy back, and I'm excited to see some cool, fun, regeneration combat style stuff. I'm super stoked for it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Blue Box. It's chapter 162. It might work out. So Takasago is the name of this random boy who is trying to ask out Ayame. And that was the point where we left off in the end of the last chapter a couple of weeks ago. And Takasago, had mentioned to her that he was, thinking of trying to ask her out, and she was like, meh. But that was then before she found out that Kyo doesn't want to have a girlfriend. And so Takasago does the very formal confession thing, even bows to her and says, "Oh, I like you. Please go out with me." And she hesitates and starts to respond. And before she can get out a word, he says, "Oh, look, I know that I'm not making this easy on you by kind of jumping you with this. So why don't you take until the culture festival is over to think it over, okay?" And Ayame just kind of looks at him for a second and says, "Yeah, all right." And he's like, "Really?" She just said that she would think about it, but calm down. Everyone in this show is 16 years old. They're all 16, all right? Mm-hmm. They need to calm down. But he also says, very weirdly, "I'll show you what I have to offer in the meantime." Dude, I don't know if you understand how people think about other people. This isn't a job application, dude. He says, "If you have any requests, just say the words." That you're not.
It's like
you don't need to impress her to sign your job resume.
I was gonna say it's like a DoorDash driver. He needs to make sure he gets a 5-star. He writes a little note on your bag like, "Have a blessed day. By the way, I have 7 children and God has abandoned me."
How would you rate my confession? And please keep in mind that my income depends on you rating me positively, even if you turn me down. So he goes off, leaves her to, keep on doing team manager stuff. And she thinks to herself, like, he wears his heart in his sleeve. He's a nice guy. He's handsome. And I also, like, I've been in his class last year, so I got the impression that he was a good guy. And she goes back into the club room, seems to spot Kyo, being a captain now. He's looking over her schedule and stuff, and he happens to look over his shoulder at her, and she does this very Ayame thing where she's like, "Oh, it's so hard being so popular," which I sort of feel like is partly for Kyo.
Yes. Definitely.
Yeah. So she thinks to herself, like, yeah, why should I, be waiting around for a guy if the relationship's never going to happen? I should just be with a guy who says that they like me.
Poor girl.
Yeah. Festival preparations are going on. We see a lot of stuff for the the haunted classroom plan that Taiki's class is doing. So Hina is dressed up as a ghost, complete with that like triangle headband thing that a lot of Japanese ghosts wear. And she's like, "She'll suffer my curse." And her classmates are like, "You're so cute."
I understand a little bit of that, because sometimes I have tried to do something like, "Hey, I'm gonna like," you try to be aggressive, and everyone's like, "No, you're just too cute." You're like, "Fuck off,
too cute.
Fuck you."
Yeah.
I could be scary. And then you start crying, and you're like, "This isn't helping my argument whatsoever."
I do admire like her dedication. She's doing a voice and a pose, and she's trying to make her eyes scary. Some people aren't able to do certain voices though. That's okay. So they're getting ready for this, and there's this whole ass thing that they do for a bit involving Taiki's got a sponge on the end of a fishing line, and he like brushes Hina's cheek with it, and then says to Kyo, "Do you think that this will actually freak anyone out?" And Kyo says, "Well, maybe if it's dark." And then Hina says, "Well, okay. Context is also important. You got to have like a narrative going on to actually scare people." So she starts telling a ghost story that's like, "Oh, a taxi driver picked up a woman, and it was in the middle of the night, and when he got to the destination, she was gone. And then as he was making a U-turn, a hand crept up behind him." And then the sponge doesn't even brush, bonks Taiki in the head, like Kyo whaps him with it, I guess. So I don't know if that's the intended effect. It sort of seems like you're just assaulting people with sponges if you do that.
I'm guessing that it's supposed to be like a wet sponge, and just like the texture is supposed to be enough to make you go like, "Ah," for a brief moment if it catches you off guard. But there's no like sound effect to accompany it. So part of me is like, is it just like a dry ass sponge that hits your face? I don't know if that would do anything to me.
Well, the sound effect that Hina makes, though, is bonk.
Okay, so maybe...
That's what I say you got bonked.
Oh, maybe the sponge was soaked in, like, an acid. And when it bonks you, it's like, ah!
Sear your flesh. That's really scary.
That is very scary. I wouldn't have allowed children to do that.
Now, kids out there, acidic sponges, great idea, will get you sued. Don't.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is a weird thing. Apparently, somebody has the rights to acid sponges, and it's one of those things, kind of like the Happy Birthday song. Like, colloquially, we all know it's a fun thing to do, but you could potentially get sued for it. You don't want to run the risk. Like, it's, we have, this is why Stevie Wonder did a royalty-free version of it, where it's a sponge, but it's got a little bit of soul.
There's just some asshole family somewhere who's like, "Actually, we own a copyright on hitting people with acidic sponges."
Yeah, and that's why Stevie Wonder did it once, and now everybody else can do a version. Is Stevie Wonder the one who did the other birthday song, or am I an idiot?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I would not be shocked if Stevie Wonder did a birthday song. Man's catalog is very strange and deep. So
I think so. Yes. Yeah, I got it right. Okay, never mind. Everyone sucks but Quinn.
Okay. Haruto comes into the room and is like, "What are you guys doing?" And so they say, like, "Yeah, well, you've got a class project. What are you doing? And Haruto just ignores this. Says like, hey, senpai, let's go hit some rallies together. We don't have anything to do right now because our class doesn't have any materials. And Taiki hears, oh, Batman, and immediately tries to leave to go play.
It is almost adorable. He's like a fucking, he's like a child. He just hears like training. He's like, time to go.
And Hina has to grab him by the sweater and stop it. We've got to prepare stuff for the haunted house. Just has to hook him down. And, you know, some of the others are like, I mean, if you look around for materials, I'm sure you'll find something. And Haruto's like, nah. I can't be bothered with that shit. He also says, look, because of this culture festival, we're not going to be able to use the gym for a while. So that means that I'm, you know, going to suffer. So I'm going to go work out right now. And Hina tries to scare him now. Like, she just goes, you're going to suffer my curse. Everyone's like, stop him. It's like, let her practice. Come on. It's what is she doing that's bad about this? You're just going, ooh, towards him. Let her practice being a ghost. Come on. Taiki asks Hina not to be mad with Haruto because he just wants to practice. And Hina kind of looks curiously after the boy for a little bit because that's still building. Taiki goes outside to grab some boxes and gets a tap on the shoulder. There is someone in a kitty cat costume who is behind him. And immediately I knew what was going to happen. I was like, this is good. This is very good. So the person in the kitty cat costume, waves and makes motions, and then eventually holds their arms outstretched. And Taiki very obediently holds his arms outstretched. And the kitty cat comes in for a hug, takes off the head, and of course it's Chinatsu. And he acts like she's surprised when it's her. It's like, come on, dude.
You're like, come on, Taiki. There's only like 6 characters in this school that are relevant, and you just were in a room with 4 of them. Like,
how many people would randomly hug you that are at this school? Honestly, dude.
It's either Chinatsu or it's who's the basketball player guy?
Oh, the one who wanted to go out with her.
I want to say Michinoku, but that's not it.
No, that's no. It is.
That's one half of Kai and Tai.
Like that. Yeah. So, depending on how you count it, but yeah. So, Taiki wants to know, like, why are you dressed like that? And she says, oh, we're holding a stamp rally, and we're gonna go around in costumes, and then you can get a stamp from each of the people in costume. So it's like a matter of like, oh, go to all the people in costume in the school and collect them, kind of thing. And Taiki's like, at least you won't get hit on. Proof that Taiki doesn't know what furries are.
Oh, poor Taiki.
Also, she looks cute in the costume. Like, that's an adorable costume. She'll get attention of some sort anyway. So, anywho.
I'm sure in his mind, though, the way I'm choosing to read that a little bit is it's less about, like, oh, no one will find her I think it's more of, like, she will feel very comfortable in this, because in last year she had to wear, like, a maid uniform.
True.
Like, I think he's just, like, she'll like this more, and she'll probably, like, people won't be weird. He is also just, like, a protective teenage boy who's like, I don't want anyone to hit on my girlfriend. Like,
right.
You know, he's into that.
She does seem a lot more comfortable in this than she was in before. Like, yes. she didn't dress up as a maid and go up to Taiki and be like, look at me! And this time she's like, look, I'm a cat!
Yeah, so. I have a sweet-ass fucking cat with a hat.
Turns out if you get all the stamps that she's referring to for her class's thing, you get a free school meal. But then, because Taiki's like, oh, you should do, because she's trying to say, oh, you should do it and get the prize. And she starts saying, oh, it's a free school meal. And then she stops and goes, I'll think about it. Oh, you're learning, Chinatsu.
It's so adorable because she answers so honestly at first, and then she's like, "Oh wait, I'll think about it." It's like,
I'll give you a prize. Yeah,
it's very cute.
Yeah. So she's like, "Yeah, I'll think about it." Taiki's like, "Well, you're gonna start thinking of your plan like right now." I was like, "Yeah, you can look forward to it when you get the stamps. Do my class's thing. Be a good boyfriend." So. Then they just, talk a little bit. She says, oh, do you like spicy food? He says, Why? Is that my punishment if I lose? How do you lose a stamp collection thing, Taiki?
I guess if you miss one, like you just forget to do it, like you were like, oh, I got scared of pirates, so I never went to visit Pirate World or whatever. They're like, you're like terrified of pirates? He's like, yeah, I'm like mortified.
Mm-hmm.
Like the ones that still exist today, like no, specifically ye olde pirates with the big galleon ships and the parrots. Those ships terrify me.
They don't have good teeth, so they're scary.
Yeah, and they didn't have badminton either. That's specifically the reason Taiki's terrified. He's like, I've watched a lot of pirate things. They've never played or mentioned badminton once. Never seen a badminton court on one of those ships.
No, so many Pirates of the Caribbean movies. Jack Sparrow never gets a shuttlecock out. Never.
No, not once. One Piece, not once have they done a fucking shuttlecock rally. Not once.
Which is kind of surprising, honestly.
Honestly, yeah. Like even in the extended groggy fights, they didn't do one of those. So big miss on their part.
Taiki spots just like a couple of people passing by, and it gives him pause for a second, and then he just says to Chinatsu, "Is like, oh, it's nice getting to talk to you in school like this." And it's like, yeah, they don't have to keep sneaking around or be secret anymore, so they can just like hang out whenever they want to, and that's nice. Chinatsu is also happy. Through the window of the school, there are a bunch of boys who really should have something better to do with their fucking time, who are just going, "Oh, Taiki, you stole her away from us. We'll never forgive you." Who are you guys?
It's such loser, embarrassing dog shit. Like, come on, guys.
Mm-hmm. So we cut back over to Ayame, who is now getting some texts from Takasago, who apparently can't even limit his interactions with her to like when they meet up. He's also being like, I'm sending you texts to show you what a good boyfriend I would be.
It's look, I have never been a teenager like this, so I can't speak to maybe this would be romantic. I guess if you're vibing a little bit with somebody, then you are like kind of happy for them to message you. But this guy is working real hard on like a maybe message, essentially, to be like, hey, just so you know, great recommendation from the local vending machine. And it's not like,
by the way, he's not buying it for her. He's just saying, you can buy this at the school.
And like, it's not as though he's like, hey, there's this little, like, he's like, hey, have you ever heard of fucking, like, Red Bull? I think it might, like, it's one of these things I'm like, she's probably heard of this before. Like, you're not introducing her to a new concept or something like that.
So Ayame sees the message and she's smiling and she's like, he's a nice guy. I mean, he's not unnice, I guess. So,
oh, Nick, what would unnice be like in Undead Unluck?
Oh, so spoilers for a bonus pod that we were considering. Ayame, I think, is kind of the idea is that she's sort of trying to convince herself that this is a good idea. But anyway, she's smiling at her phone. So some of the members of the Batman Club are like, "Are you texting your boyfriend? Shut up!" Good reaction, Ayame. Good job.
Yes.
In another part of the, I think in the locker room as people are kind of getting dressed back up, one of the guys randomly says to Kyo, "Hey, you said you're not interested in having a girlfriend, right?" And Kyo says, "Well, if I didn't say that, then everyone would be on my case about it." The guy's like, what are you talking about? And then he leaves. Kyo walks out because, he does that thing where he's like, I'm not going to let this conversation get to the point where I'm uncomfortable. I'm just going to leave before I do. So he walks outside, goes back home, and outside of his home, he sees Saki, who is in a fight with her ex, like in a uncomfortable way. Like the guy has grabbed onto her arm and is, saying like, "Hey, come on, listen to me."
This is one of the more intense scenes in Blue Box, to be honest. Like this is a series that is kind of strayed away from anything kind of in this lane so much.
Yeah. And she's saying like, "Hey, you cheated on me, so back off." And he says, "Oh, come on, just listen to me." And she says, "Look, we broke up. Quit stalking me." And then Saki spots Kyo looking concerned, of course, rushes over to him and grabs onto his arm, and she says, "Just leave me alone. This is the person I like right now." And Kyo, of course, is surprised by this. And just to really hammer the point home, we very, very briefly cut over from there to Ayame having gotten that sports drink that Takasago recommended.
Would it be great if she, like, the next shot is her writing a text back that's like, "This tastes like dog piss." Like, she's like, "Why did you recommend me this drink that tastes like backwash?"
There could be so many things going on in this interaction right here. Look, sometimes when people are in distress, they go to someone that they trust and just start lying with them in order to have a excuse for a guy to leave them alone. So that could be just be what is happening here.
I think that's, and I do think there is the real chance that she does have feelings for him, but I think that will be the reason to de-escalate from here.
Mm-hmm. And even if she does have feelings for Kyo, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. But things are getting a lot more intense going on with he and Ayame at this point. Mm-hmm. It really does feel like they are the couple that has the most like drama, or not even couple, but romantic potential couple that has stuff going on. And it is nice to see a series like we've commented on it before, just to have, because at this point it's been like a calendar year that Shinatsu and Taiki have been dating. More than that in the manga, right? It's been a long ass time, hasn't it? So
yes.
So, but it's not lost the interest because it's like, hey, look, you can do like established couples things and then just like, shift focus to another couple if you want to do other stuff. And that's what's happening here. And it's also going about in a very different way than how Taiki and Shinatsu were. So,
we have at least 2 different sort of B romances to jump in on, and then potentially also Hikari. Like there's room to like do stuff in this current space of the series without having to focus just on adding drama to Chinatsu and Taiki's life beyond like the regular like, oh, my dad knows. Oh, the tournament happened, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Oh, did you mean Akari?
Akari, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Whoever
I was just trying to make sure. I was trying to remember who you were talking about.
I blank on her name and just guess every time. I can't remember if it's Akari, Hayami. I know there's like a sequence of like letters in there, and then it falls apart.
Right. Anywho, we got Chainsaw Man this week.
Brum.
Chapter 176, 2 Children. Splish Splash, Yoru's taking a bath. It's in a flashback right now, and she is just hanging out in the bath. She reaches out for a bar of soap, and the soap just flies to her hand and turns into a quote-unquote sword. It looks like like a butcher's knife more than anything. And it's very helpfully got soap written on the blade.
Well, you wouldn't understand otherwise. It wouldn't make sense.
And so afterwards, after she's summoned it to her, Yoru says, like, a sword of soap. Soap sword. Asa appears in the bath because there's not enough naked women in this scene right now. Mm-hmm. And she and Yoru start talking about what's going on. And she says, like, yeah, it's like when I turned my apartment into a weapon, I did it without saying a name. And so Yoru says, like, yeah, we're at the point now where we can turn things into weapons without naming them, without touching them. Which, I mean, that we still can't beat Chainsaw Man with just that. And, they're started talking about how the situation's dire because they keep hearing about all these pseudo Chainsaw Men killing people. And Yoru says, whenever I am feared, Chainsaw Man continues to be feared at the same time. So as a result of that, he's just always ahead of her in power because of the way that devils operate. So Asa says, what if we just got along? Can't we just not fight him? That's not going to make you happy if you beat him anyway. And, everyone is remembering the terrors of war right now. That's just like what you wanted. So, isn't that like mission accomplished? We can stop. And Yoru gets a deeply troubled look on her face. And it's one of the very, very few times where we see her just get real with Asa. It's like she's lowering her head down and her eyes get bleary, and she says, "There's something I want to reclaim from Chainsaw Man. My comrades were eaten by him. If I can just make him vomit them back up." Ooh. And of course we know that's possible now.
Yes.
So Asa says, "Okay, well, do you have a way to beat Chainsaw Man?" And Yoru says, "There are 2 weapons I could make. Just 2 that would be far more powerful and fearsome than yours." And I was like, "Well, why didn't you fucking do it then?"
Why didn't you fucking... Come on.
She says, "I gave it my home. I gave it my college fund to make weapons." And she's like, no, that's nothing. These are trifling things. And she says,
she gave up her sushi from last episode.
Yeah. Yoru says, "Turning those 2 into weapons would run counter to saving my comrades." And so Asa again is just like, "Well, we just stop trying to beat Chainsaw Man then. Come on." And Yoru again, like, she looks like she is going to maybe like agree to Asa's plan. She knows that she's like not got much of a chance of pulling this off. But she doesn't say anything, pauses, and then just starts yelling, "I want to beat Chainsaw Man. I need to beat him. I'm prove that I'm the more fearsome devil. I'd give anything for that." For that. And we cut back to the present. Asa, Yoru, has no arms and is at Chainsaw Man's feet as he is swinging one of his arms towards her to kill her. She has no mouth and cannot say the name of a weapon. She has no hands and cannot touch anything. And she thinks, for that, would I even turn my own children into weapons? Well, I guess I would.
Great line. Mother. Great line.
And she reaches out with her stump arms and says, "Come to mother. Tank. Gun." And we cut to a devil containment facility in the Gulf of Mexico, which explodes. And something is gone from inside of it. And then, deep in the mountains of the Soviet Union, something explodes. And back with Yoru, she holds out her hand and blasts through Chainsaw Man's stomach and blasts off one of his arms. Very cool 2-page spread as she is just like slumped over but is getting up to her feet and has just shot him with right gun gauntlet. And she also has left tank gauntlet. And she has a very, very cool full-page spread of herself surrounded by Chainsaw Man's entrails. Her arms have been replaced by her children, the Tank Devil and the Gun Devil, and the Mouth Devil has been blown out of Chainsaw Man's stomach, so she's got a mouth now again.
Yeah, super interesting. I was like, I don't know how Asa gets out of this, and they found a satisfying way. They established before that Yoru is now able to, claim things without physically touching them at a various point, or at least they don't need 2 hands around her or something like that. I love that there's a little detail. It's not like specifically focused on, but you'd be like, oh, why does Asa have a mouth again at the end of the chapter? And you're like, oh, I can see the Mouth Devil in the corner getting knocked out. Like, that's cool. I love that, we know the Gun Devil. Like, that was a very significant part of last series. So there's a lot of consequence to her just casually using that power. So, yeah. I mean, my immediate thought, like, I don't know if you had any theories to what one she's trying to get out of Chainsaw Man, but didn't they say nukes were eaten by
weapons?
Yeah, like that to me seems to be what her goal would be.
Well, she said there are comrades, plural, that have been eaten by him.
Maybe Nazis as well. Weren't Nazis eaten?
There could be all sorts of things that have happened. Like this has been. It definitely makes that chapter we had a couple ago where there was all that discussion of like, oh, the possibilities of controlling Chainsaw Man's power to race up. And now it's turning that concept on its head of the world could be entirely changed if people just blow things out of Chainsaw Man's stomach that he has previously eaten, if that is possible. I mean, the only things we've seen have come out of him were recent things. So does the concept of like digestion apply here in any way? Is there a point of no return? Yoru doesn't seem to think so, because it seems she's been going after this for years, if not at the very least months, since the point that she made her contract with Asa to go after Chainsaw Man this way. But we'll see how this goes.
Yeah.
I really love that final page that we end on with Yoru full confidence back because she's got all this power literally at her fingertips. And like you said, having it established before that, like, we've seen what the Gun Devil alone can do. And now she just has two of them, basically. This is going to be crazy. And for once, it sort of seems like, yeah, Yoru could beat Chainsaw Man.
Yeah.
All right. Kaiju number 8. Oh, you thought that was crazy. How about this? Chapter 113.
Yeah, so in case you were thinking that the series was ending anytime soon.
No. Last time, Kafka's big final blow hit smashed Kaiju number 9's core. It's not over yet, though. The core has cracked. There are fissures forming all through it. Kaiju number 9 is coughing up blood. They understand the core has been damaged. And Kafka starts to think, like, that's it. It's over. But number 9 says, Kaiju number 8, let's have a little chat. And around Kafka's arms, electricity starts to flow from number 9 into his body, taking Kafka to a faraway place. And there's a very cool 2-page spread of Kafka standing on the aftermath of a battle involving samurai. And as he looks around, he thinks, like, is this inside number 9? Where did he go? And he spots something on the ground, and there is a mask, like the kind that a shogun warlord would wear into battle. And Kafka starts to go, this mask looks familiar. And then he hears some movement, turns around, and it's little baby number 9. Just number 9 with like the physique of like of a child.
It's if we were doing the kids version of this series, the baby Kaiju number 8, this is what Kaiju number 9's design would be.
Kaiju babies. So
humans are interesting, especially when I rob them of their money using my lemonade stand. Like, oh, little number 9, you scamp. I must be off to another day. And then he grows like giant tarantula legs and walks away like, ah! They're like, oh, see, that's cute when he does that.
So number 9 says, at first I thought it was a coincidence that you showed up in front of me. But I knew once I sensed the one inside you that this was a stroke of fate from a long, long time ago. Of course, Kafka's like, what the hell? What's going on? Stop. No. If you're going to exposit, you have to explain. Stop it.
Yeah, what's going on?
Number 9 says, does this not look familiar to you? Oh, it doesn't. I see. So you're not deeply linked just yet. To think you're still able to exert that much power. Looks like your grudge from back then was intense. And so Kafka's like, I mean, okay, fine. You're still talking? That means I gotta punch you some more and beat you. And number 9 says, no. You win. It won't be long before I disappear. My hopes are dashed. You and I have fought, and you have won. Kafka Hibino. I really enjoyed myself. You humans surpassed one expectation after another and thoroughly crushed my plans. I wanted to know more. I wanted to research more and get closer to humans. I admit defeat. Kafka doesn't believe it because, he's been zapped away to this strange location, and number 9 always has all these other tricks up his sleeve. But number 9 says, no, I'm not lying. I've run out of options. And Kafka can start hearing a voice say, Gil, kill, 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 kill. And he can sense coming from number 9's body things. Big, scary, mean, teethy things. And so even though number 9 is looking all small and minuscule, there's all this danger still dwelling within. And Kaiju number 8 within Kafka reacts to their presence. And Kafka can feel it reacting to their presence. Number 9 starts to swell and contort, and from his tiny body, lots of things swell out, and faces appear. And number 89 indicates my core is being destroyed, has upset my equilibrium. I'm going to be reduced to a beast that only destroys. And Kafka realizes this is what Mina was referring to before, all the countless kaiju that are somehow inside of him. And as this happens, all the landscape around them starts to crumble and fall into a pit, except for the small area that Kafka is standing on. And as the battlefield falls around him, number 9's voice says, "What did humans used to call this again? If I recall, it was me. May. That's right. The Dai Kaiju of the Meireiki era." And, that thing's got too many eyes, Quinn. There's too many eyes on it.
It's unnerving because it's too many eyes, but they're not all in the same place. There's a lot in one place, and then more other places. It's an inconsistent amount of eyes.
Kafka finally realizes where he saw the mask before, which was in a vision he previously had of some sort of samurai warrior from the past era of fighting kaiju. But something more important's going on just now. And then we get to see that as we cut out to the real world, where Mina is watching as her boy Kafka has stuff protruding through his stomach as number 9's body has collapsed, imploded, and is also impaled him through the chest with some sort of death gurgle.
Don't worry about it, Nick. He's going to be fine. We just introduced a new concept. He's going to bounce right back from this. Kafka-banashi has too much work to do to die here.
He's got too much protagonisting to do to die. You're right.
Exactly, yes. Sorry. I did like this. I don't know if the exact implication is supposed to be that there has been a Daikaiju from all the way in essentially, Japanese history that they're going to have to deal with. Mm-hmm. This idea of like there's just been a lingering threat that they didn't even realize. It is a cool thing. I think there's a flavor to capturing this idea of like almost like a historical battle kind of feeling here in Kaiju number 8. I'll be curious to see how much they're going to lead into that. Like, because if Kafka gets like a suit of Kaiju samurai armor, that might be pretty fucking dope. I'm down for it. We're focusing a lot about blade users in this series for some reason, so it would make sense. And I guess I'm just excited to see where we go from here. I don't think that we're like, I don't know if like what happened here at the end is meant to be something consequential enough that I'm like really considering its implications, or if it'll just be like, like it's a sign to let you know these other kaiju are pretty fucking strong. Like, just like the impulse of one was enough to almost kill you.
Yeah. And it's kind of hard to tell if this is like some sort of, the battle is continuing, or if this is a matter of like, look, the thing that was in number 9 is coming out now, and on its way out, it's trying to kill Kafka, or what? So it's kind of hard to tell the immediate consequences, but the sheer amount of dread that comes out of those visions of the past and the thought of like, no, like history's greatest monster is returning. Big stuff to look forward to, it feels like.
Yeah.
Let's go on over to Spy Family. It's a Damien Desmond chapter. He's hanging out with his stupid friends, studying on their day off during a break. They're at the library. The other two are like, I want to go do stuff. They're being kids, and Damien's like, no, I need to study and be perfect at stuff. They're like, oh, I want to go do an adventure. And Damien says, oh, you guys want an adventure? Well, look, this ancient culture once flourished here in the southern part of our continent. There was a treasure hunting boom and stuff. And they're like, oh, treasure hunting. And, the librarian who's helping them out, it says like, oh, yeah, there was this big thing about people going after buried treasure and trying to find lost secrets of antiquity. And in fact, the Eden Academy archaeology team launched an excavation in an unexplored region, and a student who joined them won a Stella Star. And of course, Damien hears Stella Star. Let's go do it. So all three of them put on their, their traditional European explorer gear and hustle off blindly into the woods. Basically, they just pick a direction and run that way, and all three of them have their family's butler with them to look after them. It's like,
especially including the Desmond family butler Jeeves, who
yes.
is relevant to know this chapter. He might be a important-ish character going forward,
which is not that shocking.
No, we just had
Martha
thing, to show Martha. It was just amusing to me because I was like, we haven't met Jeeves a lot, have we? Like, I could understand if there was
been over there.
I could assume if somebody like put a little thing in there to like be like, oh yeah, like Jeeves showed up like in a chapter to be like, oh, I'm picking up Master Damien. That's it. Like, I don't remember this dude doing anything, and he specifically does things in this chapter.
I do appreciate that the kids do have a moment where they're like, hey, did the direction we started running, is that a good one? And Damien goes, I don't know. Let's stop and check. And they immediately set up a little camp. They must have been running for like 3 minutes before they realized this. And so they check the books, and Damien says like, yes, if we go here, then the temple at the center of Capital City, the mountain to the east, and the sun will all be aligned at sunrise on the day of the spring equinox. They're like, oh, great, good idea. And one of his followers goes, yeah, but it's autumn and the sun rose hours ago. Let's go there anyway.
Yeah, let's do it.
They are 6, so this is understandable. And yeah, they keep on going. There is a bit of an exchange between Jeeves and some of the other butlers, and one's like, are you sure that we should be following that? And Jeeves just says like, I don't know. This was, a place that got a lot of attention during the treasure boom. Let's just play along with them until they're ready to go home. So they do like go exploring through the wilderness and stuff. They even like do some rock climbing with help from the butlers. They go across a rickety bridge and drink from a stream and stuff. And then a snake tries to attack them. And so Damien is in danger. And so Jeeves takes it out with a frickin' acorn. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Get him, Jeeves.
Go for it.
And now they're starting to get to the point where they're like, oh, wilderness sucks. It sucks. I don't want to be here. But when one of Damien's followers says like, oh, do you want to go home? He says, no, we haven't found anything, and I would sully the Desmond name if I went back now without a Stella. So Jeeves suggests like maybe we should stop for a meal. And so he and the others put with full chef outfits on, by the way, prepare a meal from like ingredients that they find in the wilderness, which is nice. But Damien is still like, I've still got to find a Stella Star. So he thinks like, okay, think, Damien. Put yourself in the shoes of a king of antiquity. Where would you build the capital? And he like meditates and concentrates and quote unquote channels a king of antiquity, and there's like an effect of his like hair standing up and stuff, and we do get just a little note. It's like this is all in his head. He's
this is mystic, but this is not actually happening. Yeah.
So he walks off and says, I feel the vibration of light coming from this way, and then a spider lands on his shoulder and he freaks out. It's okay though, Jeeves flicks the spider off his shoulder, but Damien's all scared. He's still just running around and then eventually trips. There is a nice little note where after he trips and falls on his face, Jeeves says, you must arise of your own power. And just like, oh yeah, not being a good guy, but like he's being a parent to him.
Yeah. Which makes sense considering his lifestyle or his family situation, unfortunately.
When Damien looks up, they have discovered a gigantic flower, a Gestoran. It's one of those flowers that is, like 10 feet tall, basically. And so he says like, oh yeah, it's also called a witch's crib. And he says, this isn't like a new discovery of any kind, but it is rare to see one that is this big And if you brought some pictures back to your school, I'm sure that the teachers and scholars in the botany department will be delighted. And, Damien does say, like, it's not going to be worth any Stella. One of his followers, though, does take out a camera and start taking pictures. So there you go, kid.
Yeah.
Show some initiative. Yeah. They head back to a point where they can be flown back home. I have no idea where they went to. They did fly, it seems, to get here, I guess. But they, go somewhere, get picked up by cars, separate cars for each kid, because they're all from separate families. Separate helicopters for all 3 kids. These guys are too rich. Quinn, they're too rich.
That is the gimmick, I believe.
Damien gets in a helicopter with Jeeves, and the pilot is like, "Hey, where you want to go for dinner?" And Damien just says, "Let's just get over to a restaurant when we get back to Berlin." And Jeeves says, "There's not currently any members of your family staying at the mansion if you're worried about running into them." So he says, "I didn't say I was." Okay, it just seems to me that lately you've been finding reasons not to talk with your family.
It's sad.
Poor kid.
The poor kid.
So Damien says, it's not like I'm the one who's avoiding them. And so G says, well, do you want me to call your mother and I request she cook for you again? No!
Absolutely not. Yeah.
No, don't. And he's trying to encourage him, like, hey, show the pictures you took to Master Demetrius. I doubt that he's ever seen like that. He would be really impressed by it. His eyes would bulge out of their sockets. He says, what? When aren't my brother's eyes bulging out of their sockets? You do have some weird-looking family members. You are correct about that.
In fairness.
Yeah. And also, Damien's like, you're not blabbing weird stuff to my mother, are you? And then Jeeves says, like, oh, weird stuff? Such as, like talking to her about the Forger girls. Oh, are you referring to when you and young Miss Forger danced together at the end of the term party? Or how long you agonized over what to wear to that same occasion? You're a good boy, Jeeves. I like you.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's just it. We just, have a little moment of bonding to kind of help to establish some of Damien's relationship with his butler, whom we've only ever seen very small smatterings of. But I do like whenever we get a little bit of focus on Damien, just to remind us that, hey, this kid's a jerk to Anya, but that's only because he's deeply lonely.
Yes. Good chapter. It's very strange to jump we'd been in so many serious little points for the series for so long that it was almost weird to be oh yeah, every so often you just get a random one-off chapter that's just I don't know, here's what Desmond and his friends are doing or something like that. You're oh right, we sometimes do this. So for that, it's cute. I do hope we get to see more of Jeeves, because it's nice to know that there is someone on Damien's side in his household. This is someone who does seem to be looking out for him and to some extent. So, I like that. And I guess we'll see, kind of where we're going to go from here.
Everyone's going to have somebody,
Everybody's going to have somebody. In the meantime, Nick, let's find out who Rokaru has in World Trigger.
It's chapter 245 of World Trigger, away mission test part. Wait. What's this? It happened again! The legends were true!
The legends were true. It turns out we can talk about World Trigger, and character development can occur that doesn't involve essay answering or building a creative character.
Last time on World Trigger, Rokuro, who of course for the away mission test is leading his own squad, asked Hughes, what does Osamu have that I don't have? And Hughes very bluntly says to him, do you guys have anything in common besides the fact you both wear glasses? Which is such a put down.
It's very funny because I do like that Hughes is oh, that you're both big dorks. He's in his mind, he didn't really connect the two of them besides the fact that you're just I don't know, you both tall, lanky dorks with glasses.
Yeah. And so Rokuro immediately starts to get self-conscious, oh, why did I have to actually talk about this out loud? I should have just kept this to myself. Now people know that I have insecurities. But he starts to say oh, it's not important, and then he realizes no, this is important. Like, I need to like realize what's going on here because it could actually lead to me improving. So he rephrases and says, like, you were talking about Mikumo before, and you say, oh, he doesn't have like natural talent. He also, however, doesn't have a superior training environment. But just after he debuted, his squad reached second place in B rank. I've been competing at that level for over a year and a half before he even started, and he passed me by so quickly. So what does he have that I don't have? Hughes, I really like, Hughes outside of his element where he has to quote unquote pretend to be normal because he seems more robotic than ever in these sorts of situations, or really Canadian, I guess, quote unquote. So he's like, all right, well, I understand the question now.
Yes. Now your query makes sense to me, mortal. What was that? Nothing.
Nothing, fellow human. Fellow Japanese human. Yeah. No, wait.
No, I am Canadian.
I am from Canada. Canada.
As we like to call it, up in Canada, the Great Borth. Turns out my note card
was a typo on my memo.
North. Is that a word? The Great North.
So he says, okay, in terms of natural talent, you actually surpass Osamu because you have like triple his Tryon capacity. But you have different relative achievements between your squads. And that's just because Tamakoma 2 is the superior squad. Does that make sense to you? It's like, yes, but so Rokuro is going to ask, and it's like, okay, let me put it to you this way. If I were in Mikumo's place at Tamakoma 2, I don't know if we would have ranked the same way. And the other way around, I feel like if Mikumo were on Katori's squad, I kind of feel like they would have ranked higher. And Hughes paused for a second and was like, yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah.
So there's kind of like just this awkward mood at the table as everyone's like, man, Hughes is just like really brutally telling him the truth right now. So Rokuro is like, so why is it that? What is that? And so Hughes kind of like tilts his head back and thinks that over for a second. Someone wants to know, like, hey, Rokuro, are you like seeing Mikumo as your rival and stuff? And he's like, not really. I do understand that like this is kind of something that I've just got going on in my own head, but I kind of had this idea that Mikumo's like one of us. Like, what are you talking about? Okay, so there's like the really naturally talented people like Katori who don't have to like study or work hard. Their natural talent just carries them through anyway. But on the other hand, I sort of felt like Mikumo's like, oh, he's the hard-working, hard-training type. And so that kind of makes him like me, not a lot of natural talent. So then because of that comparison, I see him doing way better than me. So what is he doing differently? So Hughes points out, like, okay, you just said that you're like a hardworking, a diligent sort of person. What kind of training do you do? And Roker's like, I set up targets in the training chamber. And they're like, oh yeah, you learned to shoot from Inukai, right? And Hughes says, can you like explain more of that to me? And he says, okay, so twice a week I get to use Ninomiya Squad's training chamber, and we have a 2-hour chat session where Inukai will talk to me about stuff while I learn the basics of shooting. And so everyone's like, so are you saying like you've learned like insider tips and tricks from him? It's like, no, he just kind of like leaves me to my own devices to train, and just kind of like corrects me if I make a mistake. And we'll talk about all sorts of things while we're doing that. And Hughes says, how long have you been doing that? About half a year. Okay. What have you gained from that? Just ask him straight up, how have you improved from that? And Rokuro doesn't know how to answer. He's like, shooting skills and the knowledge of one of the elites. I understand.
Yeah, he immediately picks up. He's like, you have gained nothing.
Kind of. But he's like, yeah, I understand what's the difference between you and Osamu is right now, but I don't know if I should tell you.
There was, like, like a part of me that was like, if this is the end of the chapter. Thankfully, we get to actually find out what that reason is. But there was a moment where I was like, if this fucking series blue balls me another month.
So yeah, Roker's like, why won't you tell me? He's like, well, 3 reasons. One is I don't know if you would actually improve in any way if I told you. Secondly, if I do tell you, I feel it will cause psychological damage and you'll do worse for the rest of the exam. Just like, Jesus. He's like, listen, not only am I brutally honest, I know how brutally honest I am.
Yeah.
And I don't care. But also, the third reason is, he says, this also might invalidate the training that you have done with Inukai. You're his disciple, and if I were to tell you, then I want to consult with him first to make sure I'm not interfering with what he is trying to do with you. And we immediately cut to that conversation. They're like, all right, yeah, freaking call him on the phone. And so they contact Squad 3, where Inukai is, and so they explain the whole situation off panel, just skip to the point. And Inukai's like, oh, so you understand what the point of the training was then, just from hearing about it. And he says, yeah, I underwent similar training at one point. Which is, so the point is, by just, questioning him, by talking with him while he's shooting, you're getting him used to splitting his attention so that when he faces enemies in combat, he'll be able to track multiple things at once. It's, it's a good approach. It gets you used to, being the type of person who has to control the flow of battle. And Ukai's like, yeah, that's exactly right. And you got it in one. So Hugh says, okay, why have you been doing this for half a year? Without telling him, that's why you're doing it. So that's the reason why I wanted to run this by you first, is because he obviously hasn't been told. So I wanted to know if there's a reason you're keeping that from him, in which case I don't want to spoil it. Mm-hmm. So he's being a very proper boy here.
Surprisingly, considerate and forethinking in all of this. It does make sense for why he is. Hughes is not exactly the kind of person who likes to give up information willingly, but it is extremely considerate to be like, oh, your teacher is attempting a very specific lesson with you, and I don't think it is my place to give you the answer for what they are ultimately trying to teach you, or to even allude to the idea that there's an answer to what you should have been learning this entire time.
So Inukai does explain himself to Hughes and says, I didn't explain any of this to Rokuro because I wanted him to realize his own power and potential first, because what he needs is to start thinking for himself. He says there's got to be a balance between thinking for yourself and seeking outside knowledge, and Rokuro tends majorly toward the latter. Look, it's good to go to others for advice, but he doesn't have the capacity to mull over that advice and digest it. And there's just this visual of him going to Arashiyama and with the notepad and being like, oh, he's so confused, he doesn't get it. And so Inukai better explains himself, and he's like, yeah, he's never grown a plant before. So if someone gives him a flower, he doesn't know how the flower came to be, basically. He can't visualize the seed, he can't visualize the bud, he's just like, oh wow, I guess this flower will die one day. That's just kind of it. So he was like, oh, I get it. You wanted him to learn how to cultivate that himself. And Rooker was like, yeah, I would be happy if he realized that this was the hidden purpose of the training, or if he would get creative with the training center and setting up the targets, or if he would ask me to do a different routine. I just kind of was waiting it out until he would take action in some way, take some initiative. So Kanzuki, I think is his name, the other agent who is there for Rokuro's squad, is like, why didn't you just tell him, oh, think for yourself? And Inukai says, if I told him, think for yourself, he is the type who would be like, what is the correct answer here? And would be focused on that. That's just how he is.
Yeah.
And look, I know what that is talking about. I have been that person. I have met those people. It's what you've got to find. Some people just operate on that level, and that's just how things go. And everyone's different on a different topic as well. So Because of that, he was like, "Look, I didn't want to give him that instruction because even me doing that would interfere in his growth. I want him to find the answers on his own. And I was planning to tell him everything if he makes it onto this mission. And plus, I started to feel like he was starting to think for himself the moment he chose you during the draft, Hughes."
I do like this.
But he also says he's got to accept the consequences of making that choice for himself, even if the answers from you end up bumming him out. So he was like, all right, yeah, well thank you. And then they go back to the point, and we're kind of left very briefly with Inukai and Kageura, who was listening in on the whole conversation, didn't really say anything. And Kageura says, like, I do kind of agree with Hanzaki. Why the hell didn't you give him any answer? Why were you being all roundabout on everything? And Hanzaki says, not Hanzaki, Inukai says, look, that's not an option. What about when I'm gone?
Yeah.
The master won't be there to wipe the disciples' butt forever. It's up to the former to help the latter stand on his own 2 feet, because in combat, we are alone.
It's a brutal line, but he makes a great point. These are our soldiers. That there's a very real chance you will not have allies around you.
Mm-hmm. Interestingly, they were talking about a bud and a budding flower. Rokuru's got a flower on his shirt in their weird little designer thing this chapter. So Hughes got permission from Inukai. Is like, yeah, you might as well just tell him, because I was going to tell him after this anyway. And goes to him with this. And Rokuru's like, I never even suspected what the purpose behind the training was.
That sucks. So you feel so bad for the guy. Yeah, like, my poor sweet baby man. You never once in 6 months with essentially zero progress thought, I wonder if there's something else going on here.
Yeah.
Like, I never asked my teacher about why we're doing anything. It's like, oh.
So Hughes starts to say, like, yeah, so I'm guessing you gained something from here and all that, so I'm not going to, like, go any further. And Rokuro says, no. Look, I have come this far. I can't turn back now. So for as much time and effort Inukai wastes on me, I need to step up and make good on it, even just a little. And he was like, all right, let me continue then. Oh no, he's got more things to say.
I feel like this is where Hughes is gonna, like, destroy this poor man. Like, I feel like next chapter is gonna open up with, like, you're dog shit, no one will ever love you, right? Like, or something like along those lines where you're just like, I mean, he presumably has a family. Like, you shouldn't have done him like this.
And when you hound people about the coasters, it really doesn't endear them to you. You need to just let people chill. None of this is real. We're in Tryon bodies. You don't need to focus on the coasters.
I keep telling you that. There's no points in our score if the tables have ring marks on them or not. You keep thinking there is, but I've assured you many times that was not a rule.
Okay. It was nice to have some character stuff going on in World Trigger.
I legitimately loved this. I thought it was great. I love Rukuro getting this character development. I like this storyline. Finally feeling like it's coming together. Like, we've been dealing with this for, God, I don't even want to think about it, but probably like 3 years. Like, ever since the draft. Like, even before that, when their final match against that was shown was a Katori squad match. Like, they have been setting the groundwork for this eventual moment at some point, and finally seeing what it's going to be and how it connects to Osamu is something I'm very interested in. I will take this. I was feasting in this chapter of World Trigger in comparison to a lot of recent chapters, so I enjoyed this a lot. I'm excited to see how this goes. I love Hughes in this chapter. What is it, Inojin? Not Inojin.
Inukai.
Inukai, I was like, oh, like, this is a character I now feel like I know a little bit more about. Like, yeah, it's good stuff, I think, all around.
All right. Chapter 19 of Astro Royale, out of the way! So, Hibaru is attacking Shio, going in with his big magnum punch thingy, and Shio just thinks to himself, I'm in trouble.
Uh-oh.
Black Diamond.
Uh-oh.
So he holds out his hand, and a bunch of black stuff starts swirling around into a vortex. All the building debris come smashing into this point as Ibaru prepares to launch his big punch, and he goes through his big thing over, the lessons his dad taught him to throw a powerful punch. He's like, the primer in my bicep fires and the gunpowder in my forearm ignites. This is my full power. Bare-handed Magnum Blast! And he launches a huge punch, and the impact of it causes, wind to be blowing people back. But as the dust clears, the black vortex that Shio summoned has blocked it. There's just this heavily condensed black sphere of debris that he used to absorb the blow. And everyone's like, holy shit, he blocked it. It's just this, with this just high density shield. And even after Hibaru has massively chipped it, it looks like he broke away like a full quarter of the thing, smashed it off, all the debris just swirls right back into it. And Terasu realizes it's a gravity Astro. Oh no, with gravity, he can do literally anything then!
Ah!
He's going to take them back in time or something. So,
he's gonna pull Shio's heart from another universe so we can get his backstory.
That's right. Speaking of that, another brother appears. They're just a doorway just appears in the line of the roof that they're on.
Yeah, I think it's like an elevator. Like it's an elevator shaft appears.
And coming down from the elevator is the second adopted son of the family, Satsuki, who we did see earlier was established as working with or for or something with Shio. And Satsuki kind of just very calmly walks out and says, that's enough of games, Shio. I've recovered the Daybreak ore. And Shio's like, all right, well then I guess we're done here. And he lets the orb of condensed material just collapse and fall to the ground. Hibaru rather tries to go after Shio and stop him as he just goes to join Satsuki. And a whole bunch of debris just comes up in a wall to block them off. And Hibaru demands, what are you trying to do? And Shio pauses and says, let me tell you one thing. The Yotsurugi family and the meteor strike are far from unrelated. He looks all ominous and stuff. Satsuki holds out a weird item that has a bunch of eyes and stuff in it. It's seems to be that mother thing that Shio was referring to before. Terasu briefly spots it and is confused. While he's blocked off by the wall, Hibaru says, I don't care if you become the boss as long as you honor the Diamond Bond. And then they just get in the elevator and leave and don't reply to him. And yeah, Shio's got the weird eye thing, and he thinks to himself, Mom again. And as they leave through the elevator to nowhere, the next time you and I meet, one of us will die. And he thinks as they depart, maybe if they weren't Yotsurugis, I could have loved them. So a lot of mysterious stuff going on, a lot of foreshadowing, and that's basically it. I do like the demonstration of Shio's power in this, where we just have hey, this guy stopped Hibaru at full 100% power with a very simple but cool-looking technique.
Yep. I do like it there. I still don't think Shio exactly has that, main antagonist charisma that you want. I can't wait to see this guy get taken down a notch. He doesn't quite have that yet. So I'm not super duper invested. This chapter essentially went exactly the way I thought it was going to last week. I I didn't expect that there's a connection between this mobster family and like a meteor that's giving people superpowers. So I'm very curious what that like eventual connection is going to be. But I think some of the art is cool in this chapter. I love that like that last full page shot of Shio where he's got like a whole bunch of shadow on his face. Like I think that stuff's cool. I do like this goofy elevator. Astro is very cartoonish, and I just think that's like a fun design space to use. But it's still not perfect. I'm still not like super invested in Hibaru, and it's not great that like all of his companions just felt like they were there. Like it also felt like Tarasu should like have thoughts and feelings, and Kyo, or not Kyo, but whatever his name is, Ku or whatever.
Quran?
Quran. Yeah. What was his brother? Was Ko? K-O-U?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I want to see more people have reactions to things than just Hibaru, because he's not a good enough character to like stand alone in the series.
Sure. We've got this little cast of 5 people. We might as well have them do things.
Yeah.
I really like the way that Chio's drawn in a lot of this chapter. And afterwards, I realized that I think that part of it is that because of the impact of the punch, like his hair gets all mussed up. I like his hair drawn the way that it is instead of being gelled back the way that it was prior to this point. And it does feel as though this was sort of like the facade breaking a little bit to show some of his actual feelings on some things that are going on, as opposed to when he was, like all prim and proper and stuff, and then it was very obviously breaking. But so I like Shio a lot more after this chapter, just because there was so little going on before. But it's one of those things where it's like, okay, this is a nice step in the right direction. Now keep going that way and continuously doing it instead of lapsing back into just all the mid stuff that we were doing before.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's move on. Let's talk about Hima-Ten. This is number 8 of Hima-Ten. A fun day off. We get our 2 lead girl characters on the front, Hanoka and what is it, Himari?
I think you got both of them wrong. So.
Well, what are you gonna do?
Yoshino is Hima, and then it's Kanai is the
yeah, isn't it Kanai? Isn't it
it is Hanoka.
Hanoka Kanai, yeah, all right.
Yeah. Anyway, so Kanai and Iemori are on their date to go to a little comedy show, and Iemori is having that realization of like, I'm on a date with Kanai. Like, it's crazy. This is chapter 8 of this romantic comedy series, and our main character is going on a date. What is going on?
I thought you said this chapter 8, and I was like about to be like, damn straight it did, Nick. This chapter 8's so fucking hard.
So, Iemori, can I ask Iemori, it's like, hey, why did you want to meet at 2 today? Was there somewhere you wanted to go? Because the show starts at 4. And Iemori's like, wait, what? We get a little flashback to after meeting up with Sayu to, hey, yeah, I'll give you my ticket and stuff. She said, yeah, here, thanks. I'll take it for like half the cost of it. That's fair enough, So, yeah, Kono's like, so you're on a date, right? Since so you've got to talk to her and reach out to her since you're a guy and stuff. You've got to plan this. It's like, oh, I asked to meet at Shinjuku Station because the show is at 2:30 according to Konoe. And so Kanai realized like, oh, she lied to you so that you would do this so that we would have more time to spend together. And she's like, oh, she caused you all that trouble and stuff. And then Iemori's like, well, okay, that's all right. Why were you okay with the meeting time? And Kanai's like, oh, well, because you're always really busy with work, so I thought that maybe there was something you wanted to do.
It's so adorable, but sad, but cute. This chapter was precious. Like, I wanted to, give it a hug.
So yeah, and I was like, I just thought that's like the idea of spending more time with you, but I'm not going to say it that way. So she's very apologetic because she feels like, oh, your time's being wasted and stuff. I'm sorry that you were misled and everything. Mori's like, well, we've got more time. How about we go to a cafe and just like chat for a bit? I'd love to talk to you. And Kanai gets, she's like, oh, she's happier now. They're like, yeah, let's do that. And then Ymor is also like, hey, by the way, you don't need to apologize to me because I am really glad that you invited me to come with you. So don't apologize for that.
This hit so much. I am Kanai in this moment. I'm constantly apologizing of having people tell me like you don't need to apologize. But also it's like it shows you a little bit of how Amori's brain works in that he's just like, I don't understand why you'd be apologizing. It doesn't make sense for you to be saying sorry right now. I appreciate what you've done. Like I think this is good. So I just liked how like straightforward he is about that. He's like, it doesn't make sense for you to be apologizing to me right now, so don't do it.
Yeah. Then we get my favorite moment of the chapter, which is they're riding the escalator while they're going through a station. They're going on an escalator up. Kanai is on a step or two in front. And so she's like, hey, Mori, look, I'm taller right now.
It's so fucking cute.
And Mori's like, it's just the escalator. It's like, I'm still taller.
It was like, those are like such like a small moment, but those really do mean a lot in setting up like why two characters would have like romantic chemistry. I think that's just so good.
And Iyamori is like starting to even feel like guilty that he's having so much fun. It's like, oh my god, I can't believe that this should be like illegal. I get to go to a freaking cafe before the stand-up show, and she's so cute. She looks so feminine in her cute sweater and stuff. She's so cute. But they're also in like Shinjuku, so it's kind of crowded around people. So they're like making their way through the crowd. And while they're doing that, Kanai brings up like, Himari's like really amazing because she would fit in with all these super fashionable, trendy people and stuff. She's really cool. And Iyamori's like, yeah, she is. But he also is thinking to himself like, yeah, but nobody's as cute to me as Kanai. Like, all right.
Chill out.
Okay. That's okay. They go to a cafe. Kanai is like, oh, the tart's so good. Just making a big, cute, happy expression. And again, Yoshino comes up. Kanai says, I heard from Himari that you're saving up for school. So, like, what do you do for work? And you, like, very briefly he explains, oh, I'm a house cleaner and stuff. And, and also you're, like, really good at cooking and everything. And, and Himari makes her own lunch, too, doesn't she? Yeah. But she also says, that kind of work suits you because you're like super mindful of other people. And Iyamori tries to play it off, humbly, like, oh, I'm just good at housework, that's all. But Kanai says, hey, the next time that you bring lunch, let me see it, because Himari's lunches always look so good. Anyway, they're very cutesy together for a bit, and then it's time for the comedy show. And they go to the stand-up, and Kanai immediately starts to have a good time. She's laughing, big happy laugh, and just does not restrain herself at all. She like laughs to the point that she's kind of like exert afterwards.
Oh my god!
Like,
I love the moment coming up. It is so funny to see when she starts struggling. She's like trying, like she's like, I can't laugh this hard in front of this guy.
I won't be cute. I won't be cute. Yeah. So she's laughing really hard, and then it's like, oh man, this next gets a lot more of like a roast. It's kind of funny. Just turns to Kanai.
Yeah,
it's kind of
not fun. Into it.
Doesn't like that kind of comedy. It's like, all right, we're learning. Then gets to a moment where the guy, as part of this skit, looks like he pissed his pants, and Iyamori is like, oh wow, it's a really crude joke. Turns over. Kanai is covering her face. The next joke is really, really big because it's like, I didn't throw water on you. You did scare me really bad, so I peed myself when you threw the water towards me. And she snorts like through the handkerchief she's covering her mouth with.
She's so adorable. Like, oh, I'm with somebody. Please stop. It's like, come on.
And Iyamori is just like infatuated with her. She's so cute. Oh. But they have a really good time together at the comedy show. And the day's over. it's time to go home for the two of them. But as they're departing, Kanai says, "Hey, I had fun today, and did you have fun?" And Iomori's like, "Yes, I got to hang out with you. I had lots of fun. Yes." And Kanai says, "Actually, I asked you to come because of Himari." Kanai, just want to say, you've brought this girl up unprompted 3 times during your date. Is there someone else you're thinking about while you're on a date, honey?
Yeah.
But Kanai says, I didn't like how Mayu had imposed on you before, and so I backed out of it at first, but then I talked to her about it, and instead of asking you like it was a favor, she said that I should ask you if you were interested. And so now Iomori realized, oh, that's why she was, acting that way before when she was, like styling my hair and stuff. She wanted this to go well. They say goodbye to each other. And as they do, Kanai thinks to herself, like, there's no way that I could ask him. And Iomori's like, and there's no way I could ask her to just go out to eat right now. They don't want to say goodbye to each other. They want to spend more time together. It's
Yes.
But someone heard you say her name 3 times and she appears. Himari messages Iomori afterwards and just says, "Hey, good job." So it's like she knew when the comedy show was ending, and she's like congratulating him on his dates, like unprompted, and also she says like, "Hey, I've got a work related message for you, so just get in touch with me after you're done with your date." And when Iomori calls her, she coughs over the phone, and he's like, "Oh no, are you sick?" And she says, "Yeah, I had to cancel my event and stay home, and tomorrow's one of your cleaning days." But you could just take the day off. I don't want you to catch my cold. But could you still like go shopping for me? That's what I wanted to talk to you about. And Iomori just listens and says, like, "Are you sure you want to wait until tomorrow for me to do that?" We covered, Yoshino is in bed. She's just like grabbing her pillow, and she's like just trying to get some rest. She clearly seems like she's got a bit of a fever. And Yoshino says, like, I mean, it's your day off. I'd feel bad, like, about, Honoka for doing that. And Yomori says, like, yeah, but I heard you helped make that happen for me. And can I just headed home, and I'm close to your place. If you're alone and you need someone to look after you, I can come by. And she says, yeah, like if you did that, okay. And Yomori rushes off and just thinks to himself, like, she works too hard, so it's just everyone being nice to each other and being good to each other.
It's genuinely very sweet. These characters are so precious. This series hits on every beat. I loved Kanai throughout this chapter. We talked before, she just felt very Onodera-ish, like not really much of a character. And suddenly I feel like we have a lot of very like full concepts of her. Like, I think there's like a lot of fun details. I could build a Wikia page on her right now and feel like, yeah, this is appropriate. This was a decent use of my time. And then I love Himari showing up at the end in like a very innocent way of just being like, hey, I'm sick. Just giving you a heads up, like in a professional way. She's like, don't need to worry about coming in tomorrow, basically, because I'm not going to have you near me while I'm sick. And of course, he who just got this amazing experience with the girl of his dreams, he's gonna be like, I'm gonna help you. Like, I'm gonna do this, So, hang around, basically. I think it's really, really cute, and it is very sweet and romantic. I'm like pulled in both directions in this chapter, and that's like a great place you want to be in this sort of series.
Absolutely. If you want it to be a love triangle, you have to make it a love triangle. Yeah.
Yep. Good stuff. Great stuff. Amazing stuff. Nick, let's talk about Ultimate Exorcist.
Is it ultimate stuff, though?
Ultimate stuff. Ultimate Exorcist, Kiyoshi.
Chapter 10, Let's Go Bowling. I wonder what this chapter could be about.
Well, based off the cover, it appears to be about eating napkins, thinking they're pizza.
Yep. So, Nehan and Jack Joe have asked Kiyoshi to go bowling with some of Nehan's friends. And Kiyoshi is very excited about this idea. Like, he literally stands up while they're eating lunch and goes and like imaginary bowls. And it's like, all right. He has a little notepad that is 100 things I want to do in high school. He's got a bucket list of the dead, Quinn. And number 53 on his list, which is difficulty rank A, is visit an entertainment center with friends after school. And he's like, I might be able to do this. Oh my goodness. Nehan's friends that we've seen like in one chapter previously, I think it was like the one where he and Jack Joe were first introduced, show up to hang out for a bit. And they're like, oh, hey, you invited Kiyoshi Rai. Awesome, cool. That's going to be 4 of us. But shortly after, they're like, yeah, awesome. We're going to get to hang out. Kiyoshi is like really, really shy and depressed afterwards. And Nehan's like, you were all excited before. What's wrong? And he's like, oh, I'm so embarrassed, got carried away. But then actually they don't leave. It just kind of looks that way for a second. One of the two of them is like, oh, hey, your lunch looks really good. And Kiyoshi's like, oh yeah, I work at a Chinese restaurant. And they're like, yeah, he works at the Gates of Hell. It's like, oh, that's a super popular place. I've heard about that. It's really cool. There's always this huge line out there. And Kiyoshi sees them all getting excited. He's like, would you like to try some of it? They're like, oh, sure. Yeah. Awesome. Yes. And they're like, nice about it. And like, oh yeah, I didn't mean to like pressure you into sharing this with us, but it's like, hey, this is really cool. And Kiyoshi's just happy because he's like, hey, I'm actually doing it. I'm hanging out with people because he's got no social skills or confidence. So he's happy about it. They just kind of hang out for a bit and they get to know Kiyoshi a bit better. And then they're like, okay, we got to head back to class. And then one of them says, hey, Kiyoshi, Nehan, let's go take a leak and then head back. And Kiyoshi goes, is this the legendary group piss? I have never heard of this before in my life.
My entire life has been about avoiding how to go to the restroom with anyone else as much as possible. Absolutely. I cannot stress to you how much I do not want anyone around me if I'm going to the bathroom, period.
And Kiyoshi like has this on his bucket list too. He's like, oh, I get to check this one off. And he leaves like, yes, I'm so in on this. And Jactor's like, were you holding it for a long time? What's going on here?
Yeah, the idea that like he's like, on the off chance I get invited to go piss as a collective group of people, I just won't go so I'm ready to go.
What a weird boy, but yeah. We love him. They go bowling, but there are girls in the group, and immediately Kyoshi's like, oh no, what do I do? This rank is so much higher. And he's got do something with girls in the group. Worst case, a field trip counts. Actually, strictly speaking, that's probably also too much. So he's got no confidence doing anything if girls are involved, basically. This is difficulty rank SS.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Nehan's like, oh no, Kiyoshi, she's here. The most popular girl in school, Maria Saotome. This girl looks like a doll. Like her something about the way her eyes are drawn.
I was also like, this is an android. There is something about this girl that is not human.
Also, she's in the brass band. Good for her.
Aww. What instrument do you think she plays in brass band?
I hope it is like a tuba. Like just have it be something ridiculous.
Okay, yeah. The largest, most like one of those giant tubas that like wraps around the person.
Mm-hmm. Don't give her like, oh, she's got a trumpet, the tiniest one possible. No. Oh, she's got a slide whistle. That's what she plays.
I'm like, that counts as brass? Is that not woodwind? Have I been dumb for too long?
So Kiyoshi thinks like, oh my god, the most popular student in school is here. I never thought I would be involved with her, but actually, maybe this is a chance. Maybe I should really try and make a good impression. For whatever reason, he thinks about Akari in this moment, saying like, maybe you'll get a girlfriend. It's like, I do kind of like the idea that he just has like random friends that he talks about different things with, and they're like, hey, encourage you in this way, that way. So, Nehan is doing really well. He gets a strike, and one of his friends is like, hey, just remember, Nehan, the losing team has to treat everyone to drinks. And Nehan says, never underestimate someone who's poor when money is on the line, which is one of my favorite things that he has done in this series so
This is the
far.
moment I was like, Nahan rules. All right, I fuck with Nahan. Me and Nahan are buddies.
Jack Joe is watching everything and goes, to be young again. You remember doing this? All right. More you know about demons, I guess. Kiyoshi's really focused. He's zeroed in. And then this poor boy, Maria, says, you can do it. And he freaks out and just like does a backflip while shooting a gutter ball. Just keeps on happening to it. Every time that Maria tries to encourage him, she just messes him up. You would think that the number of times this happened, she would catch on that maybe she should be quiet.
Eventually, it would be like, oh man, it's your 7th gutter ball in a row. Maybe I'll shut up when you go to fucking play.
I'll cheer for you quietly or something like that. And yeah, it's like the scoreboard is a chilling display of incompetence. He's just gutterballed every single time, this poor boy. Nehan, Kiyoshi says like, hey, Nehan, slap me. No, it's fine. It's fine. Because not only is Maria like totally okay with it, she's like, don't worry, I'll make up for you. She has gotten a strike every single frame so far. So it's just a perfect balance of he gets gutter balls and she gets strikes, so they cancel each other out. So he starts to do something like he's going to use Exorcist powers to bowl instead. And they're like, no, stop that. The final frame is wrapping up between both teams. We get to see how well each of them have been doing. Nehan's been doing, okay. 85, that's all right for, a non-professional. Maria's gotten 268, which is such a
That's so many. It's crazy. She's almost bowled a perfect game.
And it comes down to just Kiyoshi for the final right here. He's gotten 7 so far, my poor boy. They're like, come on, if you get a strike, you'll turn it around because we'll be full. We'll pass the other team. You can do it. But he's really, really, really nervous right now. The pressure's on, and at that moment, something starts to swirl and congest around Maria's head, and she picks up a 20-pound bowling ball and chucks it at Kiyoshi's head, and he just kind of instinctively bullet times out of the way, and Nehan immediately realized, like, oh no, Satome's got a demon possessing her, and she's freaking out, there's like a bounty on Kiyoshi at this point. So the demon possessing her says, I'm gonna kill you and make some money. Goes to attack Kiyoshi again, and Kiyoshi very casually just taps her in the forehead, immediately casts the demon out of her body, and the demon winds up like running through him into the bowling lane. And Kiyoshi says, get ready for a divine strike. And he's got the bowling ball in his hand. He makes the cross with his arms, throws the bowling ball, and splits the demon in half and balls a strike. Technically, he inadvertently cheated, but it counts. He saved the day. It's all good. And nobody else realized, except for Nehan and Jack Joe, what was going on anyway, so it's all good. And then Maria doesn't even know, apparently, that she was possessed by a demon. So she, goes up, grabs his hand.
Happy. She's like, great job. We did it.
You did it. We won. Good job. You're incredible, Kiyoshi. And so Kiyoshi Harai grew a little closer to his classmates. That's our thing. Everyone bonds afterward and stuff, and he gets to cross off a really, really big goal on his thing, which is hold hands with the girl. Because she did take his hand.
Sure.
Bizarrely enough, I actually like Maria. I just like this idea of like this perfect girl who is just inexplicably skilled at something like bowling, like that doesn't fit the image at all, and that she's just like nice. But if we were to ever see her again, because I think it's also totally okay if she's just like the perfect girl and is just a stand-in for that for one chapter. If you're gonna have a female character in the series, please do something with her, just please. So
yeah, I would basically say like if we're not gonna do anything with what Akari was, the other girl, then do something with this girl. Like just. Please do something with a female character.
Mm-hmm.
All right, speaking of female characters, though, Nick. Well, I guess Gakuro is really the only important character in this chapter, and Rise. In fact, it's basically the two guys.
Yeah. New Exorcist, Chapter 64, Kasha. Last we left off, Gakuro, he and Suo were, trapped by debris and stuff. Captain Suga and friends show up and just, rip open the door that they were trapped behind. And they're like, hey, we secured the civilians in the hospital. Good job doing that. I'll have the restoration squad heal you guys. And Gakuro's like, oh, Captain Suga, please take me to the 6th branch. So they explain off panel that the school's under attack. They learned about that and stuff. So like, okay, well, I mean, I should be able to handle that situation. That should be okay. You don't need to go. But one of his underlings is like, well, but your top priority is checking the storage vault. It's like, okay, sure. Yeah, all right. Captain Yajima, I'll take you to the school. And one of his underlings is like, no, look, he's got no strength left. His freaking hollow weapon's broken. And Suga's like, yeah, are you blind? His hollow weapon's broken, but he hasn't lost his strength yet. The captain says he wants to go. He's still got some strength. It's fine. And you're going with him too anyway, right? Vice Captain, what's your name? And the Vice Captain's like, our captain's got lousy instincts. No matter how you look at it, this clearly isn't fine because, the Kasha was summoned last time. And it's really bad. It looks like a giant UFO that's going to blow everything up. But Gakuro's still there. And so Vice Captain guy is like, he's still focused and he bolts over to battle. Now that's courage. Yes, it's also a couple other things too. So Gakuro's there. Nue's like, oh, you won your fight. Good job. Yeah. Gakuro looks over at Rise, sees that he's got, a hollow weapon, a sword that looks the exact same as his sword. And Gakuro's like, Nue, what's the situation?
What's the sitch?
What's the sitch, yo? And so Nue says,
I thought I'd make myself sound cooler by incorporating some new up-to-date slang. So what's the dealio, governor?
Ahoy hoy!
I learned it from the most up-to-date books. Now let's get out of here, crocodile.
What?
They're like, were you supposed to say, like, see you later, alligator? He's like, that does sound more right.
I thought the important thing was just to refer to your compatriots as alligators. Isn't that the cool thing to do?
All right.
Alligator?
Doesn't everybody think alligators are super neato? Like, what?
If Gakuro were actually into alligators, that would be something that would be endearing about him, though.
That's very true. He's probably like, I saw an alligator once. My dad had to take us away from the zoo after that because I wouldn't stop screaming. I was 14 years old.
Have I mentioned my dad's dead?
Yeah. When did he die? I don't know. Just know I screamed about alligators.
Nue says, like, oh, I'll explain everything after I'm done here. All right. Sure. I mean, yes, cool. I will explain about my old apprentice after we're not fighting him anyway. So Rise says, I see. So that boy's your last hope. And Nue says, I won't let you lay a hand on him. By the way, she doesn't fucking change her facial expression during this tense confrontation between the old student who betrayed her and her new student whom she is dearly attached to. She's just like, yeah, it's okay. So Rise says, I bet not. It looks harder than breaking that ritual blade. So what should we do, Kasha? And Kasha appears in his chest and transforms his appearance drastically. And then says, I remember, Nue. Over a millennium ago, you joined forces with the Exorcist Bureau and sealed the rest of the Hyo. He has the same eyes as those reckless exorcists did back then. You're attempting to reenact what happened back then, the time you were sealed by the humans you trusted. Thank you for that. Just give us all the plot right there. Just keep going while everyone stares blankly at each other. So Kasha, poking the head out of Rice's chest, is like, "Oh wow, is that true?" And And Nue says, that's a foolish question, Kasha. This world where humans live is everything to me. And Kasha says, Kyo, don't waver. I'd expect no less of my comrade. The sight of the mortal world startled me. It's an entirely different world compared to what it was 12 centuries ago. What tremendous development. Humans really are wonderful. I like them too, you know. Humans. And Nue says, your like and mine are very different things. I never understood it. 12 centuries ago, you created the mechanism by which level 4s are produced, and you're still having them play at being human. What are you plotting? Do you genuinely like humans? Is that why you accepted Raise's contract? Kasha says, I can't tell where this is going. You don't need to know. This is my ideal. My ideals have been devoured and treaded by over a millennium of hatred, and I am the one who still remains. Ritual blades, exorcists, I'll erase all misfortunes here. I'm about to place a heavy burden on you, Raise.
You need to breathe.
Raise comes back into control and says, that's fine that you've placed a heavy burden on me. And Nue says, I won't let you. And then the Kasha goes, starts turning and stuff. And Gakuro says, hey, people. Oh, no, wait, it's one of the armored people. Hey, people, fall back for now. And Gakuro's like, but Nue's by herself. Her energy is nothing like what it was a moment ago. If you get close, you'll die. And Nue goes, cord filaments. And Kasha goes, koga. And things happen. You know what? These are really cool visualizations.
Yeah.
I don't know what's happening.
It would make a great T-shirt for a 12-year-old boy. You know, it would blow their mind. So absolutely. I'm glad about that. I agree with you though. I have no idea how to even remotely parse that image.
So that weird multiple faces coming together into like a kaleidoscope effect thing, that's what Kasha's doing. And then Nue holds out her sword and goes like, here, you take the weapon, that kind of gesture, and it starts to go crackle with energy and stuff. And a giant massive vortex appears in the sky that Zeno's family can see. What?
Zeno Blade!
So
do you think that's how he says hello to him now? Like, hello, Zeno Blade. Like he has to like drop off the rest of it.
I don't know what you're referring to. Why are you saying my name like that?
Yeah.
He's got some like hot chocolate or coffee or something. Probably hot chocolate.
Hot chocolate. He cannot. Those are children. You can't be like, all right, here's your nighttime coffee before you go to bed.
I don't know how coffee works because I've never drank it. So anyway,
I'm gonna inform you a couple things. So I also do not drink coffee. In fact, I accidentally ordered a chai latte recently without remembering that you had to order a chai tea latte. And I had to throw the drink away once I took a sip of it. I was like, nope, this is revolting. I have to take the L. But drinking coffee generally has caffeine in it, and caffeine keeps you up, especially when you're young. Children, they're a lot smaller. These things work through the system a lot faster, so it could be a real issue.
Got it. Anyway, I think that they'll be okay to drink this coffee if it was coffee because it's mud now, which is way better to drink.
Yeah, actually, children are supposed to have mud around bedtime because it kind of weighs them down. It keeps them in bed. Like it gives them less incentive to get out of bed when your stomach is full of like a pound of mud.
And Zeno starts hearing a bunch of people screaming after he notices the mud and the hot chocolate. Anyway, people being like, oh my god, what is that? What, blood? Oh my god. And he very calmly says, what's going on? Anyway, we cut back to where the fight scene is. Gakuro looks over his shoulder as he's being hustled away from the battlefield. And he just goes, Nue, that's right. It's like a dry run for the Hyo War. And the real thing's going to be several times bigger? That's insanely discouraging. I still don't know anything about Nue. Also, I don't know who's saying most of those lines there because there is no arrows going to anyone. It might be Nue. It might be Kasha. I don't know. Anyway, Gakuro has the realization I still don't know anything about Nue. As we see the scene behind them is basically two kaiju starting to fight to just give an indication of like, oh shit, this is like a huge clash of powers going on there. Gakuro shouts out, Nue! And then a building implodes. Is Zeno's family dead?
I mean, I think the ending is cool. There's been this, sort of teased idea since the very start of this series that Nue, is portrayed to us as this, humanoid woman, but deep down is just an eldritch monster of some kind. So this this shadowy, almost like kaiju battle. It is cool. It is like a satisfying way to essentially like not show us her form. Maybe you want to hold on to that until a little bit later, but to create that sense of scale of like, this is what it's like when two Hyos fight each other. Like this shit will rock us, essentially. So, I do dig that. I can't say I'm like 100% on everything. Like even like the part that's like very existential, like you don't know what's going on. Like I conceptually like that it's like this idea that like a fight between Hyos can like almost feel unknowable to humans. That's how crazy it is. But I don't know. I'm still just not like completely in on the series for whatever reason.
Yeah, it's an effective page turn when you go to that moment from Gakuro just looking over his shoulder to, oh, there's like dragons fighting over there. Massive freaking dragons are fighting. It's a good page turn. I think that the design of whatever the hell Kasha does is very interesting to look at, like I said, but also I don't know what the fuck's supposed to be and what's going on. It's just a design. And then there's just all the stuff of like, oh, it's a good thing Gakuro was there to watch this happen. But okay. And also Nue's just a terrible character who just all right. That's all for that. I got one more thing to talk to you about, Quinn, which is
I'm excited. Yeah. I feel bad. I talked at the very start of the show with Undead Unluck and then it was just you. So maybe I'll have to take over like Hima-Ten or something like that. Like we'll have to figure something out. Because without One Piece, I was like, hey, cool. I could really just coast the rest of the episode.
Akane-banashi. Story 124, Room for Imagination. Shigema is telling his tale, which is about a man meeting a god of death, a Shinigami. And then talking in the role of the god of death, he says, you want to die, don't you? I can show you how. I am a god of death. And the man gets freaked out and he says, like, oh, it's your fault I was thinking about dying. Then get lost, get out of here. And the god just says, oh, don't be so cold. There is more than you realize that binds us together. You need money, don't you? I have an idea you may find fruitful. Be a doctor. And as he says that line, we get a transition from Shigema just alone on stage to him playing the part of the man, and then the god of death in the forest appears just off stage to his left. It's just there. And the story goes, and I've heard this, and I think it was I think I heard this from Rakugo Shinju as one of the important stories in it. And the story goes, the god of death tells the man, if you're a doctor, if you see a Shinigami sitting at the person's head, they're done for. Don't fight them on it. Just let them die. But if you see them at the foot of the sick person's bed, recite this magic spell, clap twice, your patient will recover. And tells them the story. And then when the man says the spell, Hajiraka Mokuren Kyuraisu Tekeresu no Pa, claps his hands, the god of death disappears. And so the story goes that the man opens a doctor's clinic. Patients come to him who have all these gods of death haunting them, and he would cast a spell if they were at their feet, and he would cast them out, and he would save their lives, and he would wound up in the lap of luxury. But pride goeth before the fall. As quickly as he got the fortune, spent it all. Good job, dude. And then
I'm starting to get the feeling this guy isn't a great guy, Nick.
Maybe it's a tragic figure of some sort.
Yeah.
So he breaks his promise to the god of death as well. So it comes to the confrontation after that, where the god of death says, why would you do such a foolish thing? I warned you. Don't bother a god of death sitting at the patient's head. But you waited for it to fall asleep, then spun the bed around and cast the spell to make it go away. And the man protests, saying, I know that wasn't the right thing to do, but look at how much they paid me for it. And another gesture happens where like the scene is there in front of him. The god of death is right there with Shigema on stage. And then he gestures at his feet, and the money that he was paid appears there as well. The god of death is quiet for a second and then says, "Come with me," and leads the man to a dark cave. And as this finally happens, Gakumon gives us the insider analysis and just says, with just minimum speech, minimum gestures, he shows you an entire world and draws you deep into it. Between nin and humorous wrinkles, many rakugoka try to add color to their stories, but Master Shigema's brilliance lies in the opposite approach, the beauty of subtraction. And this is exemplified with the metaphor of a bonsai tree, which of course the challenge is to trim it in such a way that it brings out the beauty that is already there. Shigema summarizes saying, the man was brought by the god of death to this pitch black cave where it opened up into a vast cavern that was like standing upon the shore of the open sea. From there he could see, gleaming brightly in the darkness, candles. Not just one or two candles, but an entire sea of them, covering every surface, a sea of fire. Akane, of course, is listening to this from off stage, and she remembers a lesson from Shigema. And she asks, hey, why do we have to sit in this formal position exactly? Or Shigema asks her this question, why do you think Rakugoka sit this way? And Akane is like, I guess it's to be more polite. And she's practicing being in that posture, which I do appreciate. It's like, hey, this is one of the basics of this, so just get used to just kneeling while you're doing Rakugo. But Shigema says, yes, it is partially to be polite, but the other part of it is that it immobilizes your lower half. There must be minimal movement and prop use on stage. By paring down as much as possible, you leave room for imagination. Where there is nothing, there can be anything. And Akane gets excited when she hears this because she says, oh, do you think that I can do the same magic trick that my dad does, where I can see everything that he's performing? And Shigema assures her, you will. The human imagination is vast and boundless. And we get my favorite 2-page spread of this week, which is Shigema giving the performance, but in front of him there is a sea of candles, and behind the sea of candles, shadowy figures looking down on him in this massive, deep cavern of darkness.
Yeah. Very, very cool.
Love that shot. I showed this image to my wife Nicole and just said, "This story's about Rakugo." So everyone is watching the performance, and the audience is part of the sea of candles. As Akane watches, Gakumon says to her, "Watch closely now. Your master doesn't bring people here without good reason. Surely you'll see that this performance holds a special meaning for you." And as he speaks, Shigema undoes the clasp of his robe and starts to adjust it. So, loved this chapter. Thought that it was the metaphor of how it works is just very simple. Hey, you just let people's imagination fill stuff in by don't providing them with unnecessary details. But it's portrayed so very effectively. Really, really good.
Yeah, as Billy XE is pointing out in the chat, the shadowy figures are the audience that we're looking at, but it's from behind Shigema's viewpoint, so it is still also how this character is almost kind of interpreting things. It's a very nice mixture and blending of those two worlds for a moment. And I do like how this series is just Shigema's really good at setting you on this journey and letting your imagination kind of do all the work, and he's just very good at creating the tone and letting you kind of imagine everything. And I think that's great. I think it's really, really a satisfying way of building up this character. Is one of the big fucking deals of this world,
there's also the moment where we, at the very end, see the audience, and like some of them have like kind of like disturbed looks on their faces, but every one of them have like this blank-eyed stare to them, and
Yeah.
it gets across that idea that we learned before about when the fire alarm went off and people didn't leave his performance. They're just so hypnotized by it. Yeah, awesome. That's the manga for this week, though, because there is no One Piece. So, Quinn, what was your favorite chapter this week?
Yeah, I think my favorite chapter this week is going to go to probably Akane-banashi for that chapter. I really did like how evocative and imaginative everything was. And, I really was on board with it.
I'm gonna repeat that. There were some good chapters this week, but this was the only one that made me go, "Oh wow!" So this has been a very very compelling story arc to have with Shigemo's performance. It has definitely lived up to expectations thus far, and been really liking it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really cool stuff. My character of the week is going to be Kanai. Obviously, gigantic turnabout for that character. I shouldn't say turnabout. Like, as someone asked, I think it was Ninja, was like, "Oh, would she get the most improved character?" I was like, "No. I mean, we're less than a volume into this series. Like,
Yeah.
it's not that she was bad before. It's just now we've finally gotten time to sit with her.
Yeah.
She rules, and I'm super glad about that. Like, I really came alive reading that chapter. It was like, this was like straight up like, long week, finally get the chance to sit down and read this. I'm kicking my little feetsies, I'm laughing and screaming and going like, it's great. I love it. I just needed a telephone that I could like be twirling my fingers in or something like that. It was that kind of like, like just having a good time reading energy.
I have to give it to Yoru.
That's fair.
And it's not just for that final image of her, although that is badass, but the parts of her that you see where you realize that she is at her most desperate point in this moment. Just the way that her facials are drawn while she's talking with Asa, where she relates like, I would give up everything, but I don't want to give this up. And then she understands in that final moment, yeah, I guess I will just turn my children into weapons in order to kill this guy. And she just does it. And everything about the way that she summons them, the way that she looks afterwards, very, very cool.
Yes, absolutely. I totally agree. And the audience agreed with you as well. Yoru won the audience's MVP. And it looks like Undead Unluck is the winner of the chapter of the week from our audience. So a lot of good stuff in there. Good series. I totally agree.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for Weekly Manga Recap. This week we'll have more for you next time. Next Wednesday will be our next episode here on twitch.tv/RoloT. We tend to record the show in the evening, usually around 7:30 to 8 Eastern time. But to stay updated on when exactly the show goes live, you can click on the link wherever this is posted, join our Discord server, and there'll be a notification through that when we start streaming the show. Recordings are available on weeklymangarecap.podbean.com and on podcast feed type places like iTunes and Spotify and that kind of thing. The video version is also uploaded to YouTube, youtube.com/weeklymangarecap. If you watch the video version, we get an opening sequence by Malajack Stillitz and Winslow Cheddar. Thank you guys for creating that wonderful bit of art for us. Steve Mann, speaking of art, also occasionally does title cards for us, and you can check out all of his other non-Weekly Manga Recap related work by just searching for Steve Mann Art online. He is in many, many places all across the internet. We also have a Patreon, patreon.com/Weekly Manga Recap, if you want to chip into us a bit financially to help support the show, and also get some bonus content, which we try to do at least once a month to get you some extra stuff there. We've been discussing a couple of different bonus episode ideas recently. Quinn, in our most recent case, talked to me about old X-Men stuff,
Yes.
and we had a good time doing that.
Yeah, and we just had a long discussion about what our next episode will be. We kind of teased a little bit earlier, but there's an idea that's currently being brewed that may have us creating some characters, we'll say.
Yeah. We'll say.
We'll say.
Also, Ninja X3i, thank you for everything, for coming up with ideas for us, for keeping track of stuff in the Google Doc. By the way, the Google Doc, if you have an idea for a series that you would like us to check out and do a full review of in some form, you can suggest it on there. You can check out the past ones that we have done across our over a decade-long time of doing this show. We've covered many different series, so if you want to know what we have thought about, I don't know, Pokemon. We've done a bunch of different stuff on Pokemon in the past, and you can check them out on there. You can see what people have been recommending and add your voice to that, or just suggest your own series. You can check out also how the votes have gone on every single episode to this point. And that is going to do it. We are still working our way through, speaking of recommendations, our Sadistic September recommendation for this year, Mar. But that'll be towards the end of the month when we cover that series.
Yeah. In the meantime, stay tuned. We'll have another episode next week. We're going to talk about all sorts of fun things. I already had to start coming up with Halloween planning because I realized that's right around the fucking corner. So I'm like, shit, I also need to start considering what I'm going to be doing for that next, 4 weeks, however long that is. So stay tuned. We got ideas coming.
All right. That's all, everybody. We'll see you next time here on the show. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you okay? What happened?
I don't know.
Oh, well, thank you for spending time with me. I appreciate it. The audience can't see that you just gave a thumbs up, though.
I'm fine, guys. It was a good gesture. It was a positive gesture. Okay. It's okay.
Yeah, Nick is the stunt man who we just saw like the motorcycle fell away underneath him and he just rolled across the ground, crashed into 3 eel tanks, and then
what are the eel tanks doing there?
Because if you had made it far enough, you could have potentially fallen into the eel tanks and been bitten and gained radioactive powers. Much like, I guess, Electro from the Spider-Man comics is, but I only know that based off of the movie, so I don't know if that's his actual origin.
Unknown. I hate that adaptation, by the way. That poor man. He just needed a friend.
He just needed a friend. Well, he got one when they brought him back in a sequel. All right, guys, let's go. Goodbye.